Hey guys, I'm Liz. This is my LuminAID PackLite Max. Here are all the different tests and experiments that I did with this lantern. You can find everything you need to know on the screen here, and I'll also show you how it compares to the Titan towards the end of the video, so do stick around for that. For now, let's get straight into the first point, and that's the unboxing. Okay, this is what the PackLite Max looks like brand new. I haven't opened it yet. I picked it up from REI during one of the 20% off sales. I think I paid about $40 for it sometime at the end of 2023. The packaging is very simple. It's just the lantern, not even in a box, but just in this plastic Ziploc bag. And you'll find close-ups of the back and front of it on the screen right now. And of course, here's the actual unboxing of the PackLite Max. Just open up the Ziploc seal at the top and pull everything out. Here we have the outer packaging, the lantern, some instructions on the lantern, and of course the charging cable. Now to start using this lantern, we've got to inflate it first, and here's how to do that. Take off the orange strap first, get that out of the way, and then open up the valve at the bottom of the lantern. Then I like to give it some time to partially inflate first by just pulling on the lantern gently. After that, it takes only about 5 to 10 seconds for the rest of the inflation. When you're done, close up the valve, push it into the lantern, and you're good to go. Here's a close-up of the valve. You can actually pull it out of the lantern, and when you're done inflating it, just push it back into the lantern, and this will give you a flat surface for it to stand on. Now, the first feature we're going to talk about is the power button. When you hit that button, this helps to turn on and off the light and also cycle through the different light modes. Now, what are the different light modes in this lantern? There are 5 different light modes, and here are all of them. It basically starts off at the brightest light mode, gets dimmer with each subsequent mode, and there's also a flashing mode. So basically, it's a very simple lantern. Just cycle through all the different modes here, and these numbers on the side correspond to the number of clicks of the power button. To turn off the lantern, just hit the power button one more time after the flashing mode, and that turns it off. I'll just add it in here after that last mode. Okay, now here's the PackLite Max in action. It's now off, and there's no light. Power button once, and that'll give you the brightest turbo mode. Next, the high brightness mode. After that, the medium brightness mode. The dimmest mode comes after that. And next, we have the flashing mode for emergencies. Hitting the button again for the 6th time will turn the lantern off. If you want to check out how the Max looks like on all these different light modes, here's a quick little montage that I put together that you can check out. One thing to take note of here is that the 2 buttons, so the power button and the output button here, are both flush with the top of the lantern, making it a little bit more difficult to find in the dark and with gloves on. I'm gonna shut the light off now, close my eyes, spin the Max around to confuse myself, and after that, I'm gonna try and turn it on. 3, 2, 1, let's go. What I'm trying to do here is to look for the protruding port cap because the power button is right beside it, and it takes me only about 8 seconds to locate it. So that's one tip I have for you here. I hope it's helpful. Now we're still on the different light modes, and the next question I want to answer is this. What is the lumen output for each of these light modes? Here's all the info that I could find on each of the modes. I got all this info in the official user guide. I want to find out if these lumen outputs are accurate, so I'll do so by using this lux meter. Keep an eye on the face of the meter because the accurate readings will drop quickly when I try to turn it to face you. Let me get everything arranged right now, and we'll start our reading with the turbo setting. After getting everything lined up, that comes in at about 196 lumens. The high brightness setting comes in at about 110 lumens. The medium brightness setting comes in at about 56 lumens. The low brightness setting comes in at 21 lumens. And the flashing mode is difficult to measure, but it looks like the low brightness, so I think they're both the same. Now that we've got all the readings, here's how my readings compare to the official specs as well in this neat little table right here. I think the official specs are quite accurate, and you actually get about 30 to 50% more lumen output than you'd expect. Honestly though, I would have liked the low brightness to be even lower so the lantern would last longer while giving me a little bit of light for a night light. Speaking of which, how long do these modes actually last for? That's the runtime of each mode, and here's what the official specs say. It's supposed to run for about 3 to 5 hours on the turbo highest brightness mode, and between 44 to 50 hours on the low mode. And in my testing, here are all my results. While my runtime on the turbo setting came in at 4 hours and 40 minutes, so very accurate, my runtime on the low brightness mode was a little bit disappointing at only 39 hours. That's like 10 to 20% less than I was expecting. And if you're wondering what the runtime is for the other modes, here's the info provided by LuminAID. I'd say that the timings are pretty accurate for the turbo and high settings, but a little bit off in a bad way for the medium, low, and flashing modes. They are about 10 to 20% less than you'd expect to get here. So not done with the light modes, here's another question I want to answer, which is what's the total lighting area of this PackLite Max? The info I got on this from the official LuminAID website is that the lighting area is 200 square feet, and that looks something like this. And of course, we're going to test it out. Here's the max in the middle of my yard, and this is the turbo mode, or also the brightest mode. What I'm going to do now is to measure this distance right here, which shows how far the max can throw its light. Also, here's my lux meter again. This has been so useful for all the different tests, and I'm just going to keep an eye on it as I slowly back away from the PackLite Max. And here's the spot where the meter is showing a 0 lumen reading. Here's the distance from the 0 lumen reading to the PackLite Max, and when I measured that in footsteps, that came in at about 7 steps. Okay, so here's the info that we're working with now. 7 of my footsteps will give us about 6 feet in shine radius or shine distance, and that comes in at about 1.84 meters if you need that conversion. What kind of lighting area will this give us? I calculated that, and that comes in at about 144 square feet. This is about 30% smaller than what we were expecting from the official specs of 200 square feet. To get to a 200 square foot lighting area, you'd need a shine radius of almost 8 feet instead. Is this smaller lighting area of the Max still okay there? Well, it's actually more than okay. Most of us usually use 6-person tents. That's actually the most popular tent size, and a typical Sundome 6-person tent has a square footage of about 93 square feet, so the Max is able to light up the entire tent on turbo mode. As for an 8-person Coleman tent, I've got the Montana with 103.5 square feet, where the Max is able to light up the entire tent too. Same with a 10-person Weathermaster, the Max is the perfect lighting area for that. This is the Max in my Sundome 6-person tent. This is the highest turbo mode. Notice how the entire base of the tent is lighted up nicely. Here's me sitting right at the edge of the tent, and I'm able to read a book perfectly fine because there's more than enough light. Now the brightest mode is too bright for chilling because it's quite harsh white light. Here's what the high brightness mode looks like, also too bright. Here's the medium brightness mode, getting better, and here's the low or dim mode, definitely the best for chilling. You won't be able to read anything though because it's just so dim, you can't see the words on the page too well, so don't bother. That's because this dim mode only gives you a slight illumination, not enough to light up the entire tent super well. Here's what all the modes look like from the outside of the tent. First, we've got the turbo mode, then the high brightness, but not turbo mode. After that, the medium brightness mode, the low brightness mode, and finally, we have the flashing mode. And that's all the modes we've got. I thought the light color in the Max was a little bit harsh. It's a cool white that's about 5900 to 6500 Kelvin, so that's the color temperature, and honestly, not my favorite. Thankfully, the outer layer comes with a decent quality frosting, which helps to diffuse the light a little bit and make it a little bit softer. Otherwise, I'd never use this at all. The next feature we're going to talk about is the battery indicator lights. To see it, press on the output button. These green lights will then show up. For a full charge, it'll show 4 lights, and as the battery dips, it'll show 3 lights, 2 lights, 1 light, and then no lights. Exactly how accurate are these lights? I couldn't find any info on them, so I'm just going to assume that each of them mean about 25%, since there are 4 lights altogether. What did I notice in my testing? Well, I'm going to give you my test results when I was running the lowest brightness test and also the highest brightness test. Here's all the info that I think you may need. Notice here that the lights were pretty decent for the turbo brightness test, but not for the low brightness test. I honestly found it a little bit temperamental. I noticed that it sometimes will change between 3 to 4 bars of battery whenever it wants to change. Sometimes it'll go down to 3, go back up to 4, stay there for a while, and then go back down to 3. On top of that, I found these lights super annoying when it came to charging this lantern, and we're going to talk about that next. There's this protruding port cap here at the top. Just open that and you'll find 2 ports inside. One of them is a micro USB for charging this lantern, and the other is the output for charging your devices. For this test, we're going to plug in the micro USB cable that came provided. Now, here's when you know that this lantern needs to be charged. If you press the battery button, all the 4 green lights will turn on for just 1 second and then shut off completely. if you try to turn on the light, it will stay on for like a few seconds and then shut off by itself, which shows that it's really low on battery. So I'm just going to plug the other end of the provided cable into the wall, and the moment I do so, this red light here by the battery lights should turn red. Here's the frustrating thing. When I press the battery button again, it shows 2 lights immediately after plugging it in. 10 minutes of charging later, 3 lights. 20 minutes in, 4 lights. I unplugged it at about 25 minutes in, and I got about 3 hours and 10 minutes of runtime on its turbo setting. That's definitely not the max runtime, so that means that this lantern isn't even fully charged, even though it shows 4 lights. So how do you know when it's fully charged? Literally, just charge and discharge it until you find the magic number. Anyway, let me just condense all my info for you in this neat little table. Yeah, so this basically tells you everything you need to know about how long to charge this for. A few things to take note of. I love that there's a fast charging function, so you can charge it for just 30 minutes, and that'll give you like 2/3 of the battery capacity. The magic number I found here was the 1.5 hour mark. That'll give you the max runtime of this lantern. Anything more will not give you any extra charge because it's already full. Yeah, so the battery indicator, really not great. It takes some time to get used to it to find out the optimal amount of time it takes to charge. But once you know, so I guess it's not a terrible thing. Now, remember that we saw 2 different ports. We talked about the micro USB input, so we're gonna talk about the regular USB output next. Just take your phone or whatever cable you need, plug it into the regular USB port, and then plug the other end into your phone. Then to start the charge, press the battery indicator button. It says here, press for output. Your device will start charging, and here's all the info that I've got for you. I started off at about a 20% charge, and I got to a 68% charge, so that's a total charge of about 48%. This took me almost 1 hour, or about 58 minutes, not to be specific or anything. Overall, that's less than 1 full charge. Why? Well, because the capacity of the PackLite Max is only about 2000 mAh, whereas the capacity of my iPhone 12 is about 40% bigger, coming in at 2850. So yeah, you can expect a full charge of your phone on this for sure. The capacity is just too small. But one good thing here is that I had some leftover light, about 4 hours on the dimmest low brightness setting before the battery officially went flat. So thankfully, you won't be left without any light. Now, this PackLite Max can also be charged via solar energy, but this will take much longer, in about 14 hours as compared to the 1.5 hours direct from a USB port. I'd say that this is accurate only if you have 14 hours of really strong UV sunlight though. Because when I put my Max out in the sun for a whole 12 hours, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., which is sunrise and sunset for me, I only had about 2 bars of battery at the end of the day. I did like that the red light near the battery light turns red, so you know that it's charging under the sun. Here are the conditions that I was dealing with. Not too sunny, but not too cloudy at the same time, so it's great for testing out what an average day looks like. I did some further testing with the Max and found that I got about 30% battery from 1 day of solar charging. In terms of runtime, that's about 1.5 hours on the turbo 196 lumen setting and about 12 hours on the low 21 lumen setting, which is great for a nighttime light. To get a full charge on the Max, you'd need about 3 average days of sun, so not too sunny but not too cloudy. If it's cloudy or rainy, that will definitely increase to maybe 6 days or more. And if you're lucky and it's super sunny, you can get away with 1 to 2 days of charging. At least that was my experience. The next feature is the orange hand strap at the top of the lantern. There's 3 connections here, so you can kind of adjust how tight or loose you want the strap to be. I thought this was actually pretty useful when stowing the lantern away after deflating it, because you can just tighten the strap to the back of the lantern, and you can make it as tight or as loose as you want it to be. You can also hang it up in a tent if the lantern loop's big enough to fit it. As for the IP rating of this PackLite Max, that comes in at IP67, which means that it can be submerged in water up to 1 meter for about 30 minutes. My first test with the Max was about a 30-minute heavy rain test, and I'll show you some quick shots of that. It took the rain like a champ and worked really well the whole time. When I opened up the port at the top, which is probably the most vulnerable part of the lantern, there wasn't a single drop of water inside despite all the heavy rain. Next, I had the Max completely submerged in water for a full 30 minutes. I wanted to test out the 1 meter depth, but it was just so buoyant and kept wanting to float up. So I decided to skip that for now, but I'll get around to doing that next time. After 30 minutes of being submerged and then I pulled it out, I found that it was still lighted up and working great. I checked it more and found that all the functions still work great, so that's the lantern light and the battery lights. The ports were also almost completely dry, just a single drop of water on the outer rim, but I think it's still very well watertight. For the drop testing, you can actually drop this lantern from anywhere and any height. At hand height, it stays lighted up the entire time and doesn't have a single scratch. I even dropped it down a slope. It hit a rock along the way, but it's so cushioned by all the air inside the lantern that it's still fine. I picked it up to check, and you can't really tell because it's so bright out, but it's still on and working great. For portability, this Max weighs about 7.7 ounces or about 218 grams if you need that conversion. And without deflating it yet, the size comes in at about 5.9 inches by 5.9 inches at the top, and that's about 15 centimeters for each side. The height without deflating also comes in at about 5.9 inches or 15 centimeters, so basically it's a cube all around. After deflating, it packs down to just 1 inch or 2.5 centimeters. How does this lantern deflate though? Well, just pull off the cap to the valve and then just squeeze the entire lantern from its sides and also the top. Once it's deflated enough, one very important tip is to twist the lantern 90 degrees. That gets all that lantern fabric neatly tucked in and packed down as small as possible. Then close up the valve. If you're wondering this is what it looks like to twist a lantern, it's basically just twisting the bottom from the top. Then just undo the front strap and tuck it behind like how I showed you. Now, exactly why do I think the Max is not great compared to the Titan? Simply put, the Titan just beats the Max in almost every single test. Let me show you every single one right now. One of the biggest differences is how the Titan inflates. You don't have to breathe air into it at all, just twist and pull it open. Then twist and compress it. This takes no more than 2 to 3 seconds. On the other hand, with the Max, you gotta inflate it with your breath. This takes 5 times as long, coming in at 10 to 15 seconds, and you'll find these water droplets from your breath in the lantern after that. I also love that the Titan has double the light modes of the Max. So the Max has 5 light modes, all with white light. The Titan has all these functions, plus an extra 5 light modes in red as well. This is especially useful because these PackLite lanterns do not have memory settings. For the Max, if you wake up in the middle of the night and turn on the lantern, it'll go to its extra bright turbo white light, which can be blinding. On the other hand, for the Titan, you can switch the light to a nice red light before turning it on. The Titan also has double the battery capacity of the Max, coming in at 4,000 mAh. So when I was charging my iPhone 12, I got a total of 82% charge, much more than what I got with the Max. And it's not just the battery capacity, the Titan has like double everything of the Max, including almost double the brightness. My Titan has a max brightness of 360 lumens, while my Max has a brightness of only 196 lumens. So the Titan has about 60% more there. My Titan also has double the runtime of the Max. It's supposed to have a 100-hour runtime on the dimmest setting, while the Max is 50, but when I actually tested it, my Max had only a 39-hour runtime, and the Titan had a whopping 250. Yes, 250. That's 6 times the runtime, which is insane. Want to know why? Because the Titan has a much lower lumen output on the dimmest setting, coming in at just 1 lumen compared to 21 lumens on the Max. And honestly, I really like that. So for the Titan, I can choose between 1 or 360 lumens, while for the Max, the range is much smaller, coming in at between 21 lumens and 196 lumens. The Titan also has a significantly bigger lighting area than the Max, coming in at 211 square feet compared to the Max's 144 square feet. That's 50% more. The Max can light up a 10-person tent, while the Titan can light up a small campsite. I also found that the Titan only takes about 30% longer to charge, even though the Titan's capacity is double that of the Max's. The Titan's solar panel is also 2/3 bigger than the Max's, so you get more of a charge for the same amount of time these lanterns are out in the sun. And did you know that the Titan is also puncture-proof? So even if there are micro holes in the Titan, it can still be inflated perfectly fine. The Max, though, definitely not puncture-proof. Some smaller differences is that the Titan has an SOS Morse code flashing mode, but the Max is just normal flashing, and the Titan's hand strap is also Velcro and more user-friendly than the Max, which comes with a plastic snap-on. However, just take note that the Titan is 50% heavier and also about 60% more expensive. If you're undecided between both, the weight and price of the Titan aren't issues for you, then I'd just go with the Titan, honestly. It's seriously one of the best solar lanterns I've ever ever used, and this video on the screen here will show you exactly why and how it compares to other lanterns too. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in that one.